Okay, so we are going to do this together now. The His equation for positive homotropic cooperativity. If you're asked to do that, the very first thing to do is to write for a dimeric enzyme. For a dimeric enzyme, that is E2. E2 is a dimeric enzyme. That is enzyme with two binding sites plus two substrates. That is two substrates to fit in these two sites. Will give us E2S2. This is the very first step. Then you write the binding constant. There are two methods to do this. I used the first method in the first marathon class. Then today I use the two method, but I'm going to go with the second method because I think it's a lot easier. So the binding constant is equal to the concentration of the product, all over the concentration of the reactants. But when we are writing binding constant, this is how we go. So we write concentration of E2S2 all over the concentration of the reactants now. That is, we have E2 S square. Now take note, the 2s here, you don't just write 2s when taking binding constant. You just square it. You take it, you square it. So that's how it is done. The next thing is, after that, you consider fractional saturation. Fractional saturation. Fractional saturation is given as bar Y, and fractional saturation bar Y is equal to enzyme bound all over total enzyme. Enzyme bound all over total enzyme. Now the enzyme bound is given as ES, is enzyme bound. Concentration of enzyme bound all over total enzyme can be given as E total. The next thing, fractional saturation. This fractional saturation can be given as the enzyme bound is obviously E2S2 all over total enzyme is free enzyme that is free, that is E2, plus enzyme that is bound, that is E2S2. Now recall our KB was given as E2S2 E2S square. This was our KB. Now we can cross multiply. If we cross multiply, we'll have KB times this to give us KB E2 S square equal to E2 S2. The next thing is you substitute, let me call this equation asterisk. You substitute equation asterisk into bar Y. That is, anywhere we now have a new value of E2S2. So anywhere you see E2S2, you put the whole of this. So bar Y, instead of writing E2S2 now, I'll put the whole of this. So I'll have equal to KB E2S square, right, all over, instead of E2, okay, E2, we have E2 there, so I have E2 plus E2S2. Instead of E2S2, I will have the whole of this. Remember, E2S2 is now the whole of this, so plus KB E2 s square, right? Good. Now I can factorize out by y. I can factorize out e. Since e is here, so I can say by y equal to kb e2 s square all over. If I bring out e2, I will have 1 here because e2 times 1 will give me this, plus kb s square, because this times this will give me everything here. Now the last step, you can see that this e2 can cancel this e2 here, so we are left with by y equal to kb s square all over 1 plus kb s square. This is the His equation. So kindly go through it. It's actually very simple. So that's that. Let me know if you have any question on this.